What's going on, everybody? Anthony Cervino here on the RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube channel with my top players to buy, sell, and hold in Week 13. We're going to start Justin Jefferson, folks. And Justin Jefferson, he's a buy low right now. It's crazy to say that Justin Jefferson would ever be a buy low, but he's coming off 3 of his worst fantasy outings to date. 2 out of his past 3 games under 9.8 PPR points, and each of his past 3 games under 14.1. He has yet to score a touchdown since week 7. That's a 5-game drought, and he hasn't had double-digit targets since week 5. He's also coming off of a season-low 5-target outing where he only caught 2 passes for 27 yards against the Bears. This is a team that they're now relying on Jordan Addison, who is stepping up. And more importantly, since TJ Hawkinson's return, he's also commanding volume. But the rest of season schedule for Justin Jefferson, you have decent games against Arizona, Atlanta, Seattle, a couple of tough ones against the Bears and Green Bay through the fantasy playoffs. But there's no better time than now to try to buy low on Justin Jefferson. We know he's a superstar. We also know that when it's all said and done, if the Vikings are going to make any noise moving forward, Justin Jefferson's going to have to be a part of the game plan, which correlates to fantasy football production. Next up, Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving has been sensational. Since week 6, he has given us double-digit PPR points in all but 1 game. But this past week, against the Giants, again, it was a really good matchup. He popped for a season-best 27.1 PPR points, 12 rushes for 87 yards and a touchdown. But he also caught all 6 of his targets for 64 yards. Now, I get it. Rachaad White is still in the mix. He scored. And even Sean Tucker found the end zone. It was just that type of matchup. But if you watch the game, Bucky Irving looked like a step above the rest. He looks like he is beginning to take over the de facto running back 1 job in Tampa Bay. Doesn't mean Rachaad White's going to go anywhere. It doesn't mean that Sean Tucker might not also stay in the mix. But if Bucky Irving is going to see anywhere close to 18 touches a game, because going into last week, he was right around that 12 mark. If they start kicking his volume up past 15 touches, then Bucky Irving could be a fantasy football league winner down the stretch. If you look at his schedule, outstanding matchups. Carolina, you get them twice, including the fantasy Super Bowl week 17. The Raiders, Dallas, and then a tough one against the Chargers. This is a great running back to buy low on while he's still priced decently low. Next, we are going to buy a tight end named Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is one of the biggest surprises of the fantasy football season. Past 2 games, he's gone absolutely ballistic, over 23 PPR points as the floor. In fact, he's gone over 20 PPR points in 3 out of his past 6 games. When it comes to usage, he's had at least 6 targets in all but 1 game since week 10. But in back-to-back games, he's had at least 8 opportunities. He's cashing in. He has scored 3 touchdowns in his past 2 games. He's combined for over 200 yards receiving in his past 2 games and over 13 catches in that 2-game time period. This is an offense that's loaded. Waddle, Hill, Achane, guys like Mostert. You have dudes everywhere. But it seems like Jonnu Smith is becoming a focal point of this offense, and this isn't new. The usage has been there. Dating back to week 5 is when he really started getting opportunities. He didn't start popping until recently, but the opportunities have always been there for Jonnu Smith. Just like Mike McDaniel said he was going to get Jonnu involved in the offseason, well, he has kept his promise. And from a fantasy football perspective, Jonnu Smith is a must start down the stretch. I get it. Couple of really tough matchups ahead. Jets, Houston, San Francisco. But with so many players on this roster to try to contain, there's going to be games and there's going to be times during a game where Jonnu Smith is going to be running wide open like we've seen. If you need a tight end, go buy Jonnu Smith for a potential rest of season run. Remember, if you like content like this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the alert icon, so you can be notified anytime we go live to answer your questions or when we drop content just like this. Next, some players to sell, starting with Malik Nabers. Now, I was out on Malik Nabers after the Andrew Thomas injury, and then they make the change to Daniel Jones, to Tommy DeVito. I thought there would be a little bit more hope. Maybe Tommy DeVito is going to sling it a little bit more. Well, the volume is there once again for Malik Nabers, but the production is subpar. He is still giving us double-digit PPR points in 4 straight games, but he's under 14.9 in all of them. He's getting at least 9 targets in each of his past 4 games, but he hasn't surpassed 71 yards receiving, and he has not scored a touchdown since week 4. He's only had 1 red zone opportunity since week 4. This is a bad offense. There's bad quarterback play. And of course, he's going to see volume. Malik Nabers, that volume isn't going to go away. But do I see any more spike games coming? Maybe 1, maybe 2 down the stretch. But there should be a lot more. His rest of season schedule is one of the best for any wide receiver in fantasy football. You get Dallas, New Orleans, Baltimore, Atlanta, Indy. But with so much bad quarterback play from Tommy DeVito, even if they switch to Drew Lock, I don't know if it's an upgrade. This offense and Malik Nabers, who's attached to it, is only going to go so far because the enemy defensive coordinator, they're game planning to take out Nabers. Let your other guys beat us. And as long as that's happening, then Malik Nabers, his ceiling is going to be capped. Sell him now and get what you can for him. Another wide receiver we're selling, Terry McLaurin. I get it, McLaurin. Another 20-point week this week against Dallas. 5, 102, and 1 on 6 targets. If you watch this game, the touchdown and most of those yards came on 1 play where Dallas didn't feel like tackling at the end of the game. McLaurin is a boomer bust player. He's given us a lot of good weeks, but there's been a few duds. Even a few weeks ago when he put up 15.9 PPR points, scored 2 touchdowns, well, he only had 3 targets and he caught 2 for 19. They were both scores. There's been quite a few times this year he's been held under 22 yards receiving. He's either really involved in a game plan or he's not involved at all. And Terry McLaurin, if you need to win now to get into the playoffs, I think he's a player to sell because you can still get something good for him. Now, his playoff schedule's nice. New Orleans, Philly, Atlanta. But that doesn't help you right now because this week you get the Titans, number 3 against wide receivers, and then in week 14, McLaurin's on a bye. I don't love these 2 spots for him. Number 1, you can't use him week 14. And this week, if you have a better wide receiver in a better matchup, I would probably start him. But still, McLaurin, the playoff schedule, the fact that he has some spike weeks, he's going to bring you some value. So if you're a Terry McLaurin fantasy manager and you need to win now, I'm trying to flip him to get me a wide receiver that can help me do just that. Maybe buy low on somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr. Next up, players to hold. Number 1, Christian McCaffrey. Folks, I get it. Christian McCaffrey, since coming back, been solid. But he's still been under 16.4 PPR points in all 3 of those games. The 49ers don't look right. Christian McCaffrey doesn't look right. In fact, he has yet to find the end zone since his return. The touches aren't all there. He's only averaging right around 14 touches per game. He's still seeing the heavy targets as a receiver out of the backfield, which is really saving his PPR floor. But until the 49ers get right and until Christian McCaffrey finds a way into the end zone, I think the spike weeks are going to be capped. The good thing, the 49ers, they need to win. They need to win now, which means Christian McCaffrey isn't going anywhere. They get Buffalo, Chicago, the Rams in their next 3 games. All 3 of those games are very easy matchup when it comes to fantasy points allowed to enemy running backs. I get the panic decision would be to sell. Let me get what I can from McCaffrey, but I'm not willing to move off of him just yet. He's an elite player, working his way back from injury, especially last week. Their starting quarterback was out. If you need to win or you're trying to chase a fantasy football championship, I'm still holding out hope that Christian McCaffrey is going to get you there. Plus, coming off of these few dud games, I don't think you're going to get the value you should get for Christian McCaffrey, even if you were to sell him. If I'm Christian McCaffrey fantasy manager, I'm holding tight. The final player we are holding is Jackson Smith and Jigba. And Jigba's coming off of back-to-back-to-back, 3 straight big-time games with at least 19 PPR points. He's had at least 7 targets in every game since week 8. He's had at least 77 yards in 3 straight games as well. Right now, he looks like the better wide receiver than DK Metcalf. But people forget Metcalf's still coming off the injury. I'm not ready to crown JSN as the wide receiver one in Seattle just yet. But he's also playing really good football. Why I'm holding JSN is because I think he's going to finish out the year strong. Granted, you get a couple of tough matchups against the Jets, against Green Bay and Chicago in there, but he's still lining up opposite DK Metcalf, and the enemy defensive coordinator is still probably going to try to game plan to take out DK Metcalf, which means there's going to be more opportunities like we've been seeing going to JSN. I don't want to sell JSN. I don't want to buy JSN unless I can get him at a decent price. And right now, his price is astronomical. The best thing to do with JSN is hold him and ride him to a fantasy football title. I think this is the breakout. I think the breakout is here. I think we're in the midst of the JSN breakout everybody's been waiting a year and a half for. So the best thing to do is ride it out and ride him to a fantasy football championship.